So welcome to those in Hope Theatre with me, and welcome to those online and those who are also maybe viewing this recording at a later time. My name's Professor Anne Rogerson, and I'm actually the Associate Dean of Education for the Faculty of Business and Law. And also presenting with me tonight is Associate Professor Belinda Gibbons, who's my deputy. So that's why we're the dynamic duo. And so we're going to talk to you about exams in all ways, shapes and forms. The recording of this will be made available on the Faculty of Business and Law website. We will be taking questions, but also taking questions on notice where we want to make sure we get the right answer for you. So what I'll do is I'll start sharing my presentation. And so everyone should be able to see that online, and also we can see it in Hope in its very large format. So I will just try and move this up to the side so we can see what's going on. So to start out, so this is covering exams, but also we have this thing now called a timed assessment, which is an exam, but it might be a window where you have an assessment task where you might have 6 hours to complete it or 24 hours to complete it. So some of the principles we're talking about apply to timed assessments as well. So that's why we're expanding the terminology just a little bit. So first of all, I'm going to start with an acknowledgement of country. And we acknowledge that country for Aboriginal people is an interconnected set of ancient and sophisticated relationships. The University of Wollongong spreads across many interrelated Aboriginal countries that are bound by this sacred landscape, an intimate relationship with the landscape since creation. From Sydney to the Southern Highlands to the South Coast, from freshwater to bitter water to salt, from city to urban to rural. The University of Wollongong acknowledges the custodianship of the Aboriginal peoples of this place and space that has kept alive the relationships between all living things. The university acknowledges the devastating impact of colonisation on our campus's footprint and commit ourselves to truth-telling, healing and education. So before we get started, this session is being recorded by Webex, and the recording will be made available. If you are online with us, if we ask that you mute your microphone and it stays muted until there's a chance to ask questions. Please put any questions in the chat, and if you take a note of the questions, people in Hope, and we'll cover them at the end. So the session outlines, so I'm going to talk about exams and why we actually have exams. Revision, how to revise and what you need to revise, and how to actually approach an exam or timed assessment. So exams and timed final assessments, why do we have them still? They're actually an opportunity for you to demonstrate what you have learned within a time-constrained environment. And if you are in law or if you are in business, there will be multiple occasions during your career where you'll be asked a question and asked to respond. So some of this is actually formulating thinking processes and how you would actually approach answering specific questions in a context. So in the context of your study, it's about showing how you can apply your knowledge to subject-related questions. So how do I get through them? Preparation is key. I know some people sort of manage through high school, you know, the late night cram the day before the exam, and you just bowl in there and you just knock it out of the park. But you're putting a lot of stress on yourself that maybe you don't need to do. So there are other ways to do it. Some of that is planning your time, both in preparing and revising. How you structure your answers, writing enough, which might sound a bit crazy, but I've had cases in the past where an essay-based response has been required and someone's written a paragraph or 2 sentences and thought it was an essay. It's not an essay. You're given time to write, make sure you write enough. Make sure you're answering the question that's being asked, not the question you've memorised, the question you thought it would be, but actually the question that's asked. So you have to be the one putting in the effort for the exam prep and answers. And if you don't answer the questions, you won't get enough marks to pass. Basic rule of maths. So they're about the appropriate use of relevant knowledge to answer a question. That's basically what an exam is. So you're being selective about what information you're going to use to answer a question. If you've got a formula-based thing, you may be asked to apply a formula in a particular question, but it's using that appropriate knowledge. So whether it's a formula applied to a situation, whether it's a case applied to a situation, whether it's a theoretical construct applied to a situation, you have to use the appropriate thing relevant to that situation. So just like in the real world, you need to select what knowledge is appropriate. So the first step to ensuring that this happens is you revise efficiently and effectively. So in revising your work and preparing study notes, here's some ways you can go about it. It's about consolidating what you've learned. It's not about, oh gosh, I've done nothing for 10 weeks. I'm going to cram the entire session into 3 weeks and learn it all. You actually have picked up a lot of knowledge along the way. You might realise it, but you have actually been picking up knowledge along the way if you've been reviewing your blended learning content, attending lectures, tutorials, participation, other assessment tasks. You are picking up bodies of knowledge along the way. So with revision, it's about identifying what you know and what you need to know better. So it's about filling in the gaps, clarifying any areas that you don't understand, and making some summary notes. So for many subjects, examinations may be drawn from all topic areas across the entire session, or they might be from selected weeks. So this is where you need to be clear from a subject perspective what is going to be covered. So this will determine how many summary notes and things you need to provide. So I've just taken an example from a first year statistical subject, and this one has actually said their final exam covers chapters 9 to 14. So they're telling you the specific body of information that you need to revise. You will need to check this for your subjects because it will vary from subject to subject, whether it's the entire session or it's a selected number of weeks, or in this case, it's a selected chapter. So you can clarify this with your lecturer or tutor if it's not clear in the subject outline or on the Moodle assessment task. Your subject outline provides you a list of key topics or themes, and a professor when I was studying my first degree got me into this habit, and using the lecture program as a place to start for how to do summary notes. The idea is about condensing information. It's not about writing masses and masses of information. It's about condensing it into a state that you can actually use it efficiently. So by the subject outline, you've got the topics covered. So you might want to do a summary sheet based on a week or on a particular topic area. Summarise as much as you can to 1 page because it's less daunting in that study period. So you've got a study week in your session before the exam period. It's much easier and less daunting to go through, say, 10 sheets of paper rather than entire reams and reams. Where do I start? It becomes a bit overwhelming. So it's about making it efficient and effective and also taking some of the stress away from you. So use the key topic ideas for each week as a heading. But instead of going straight to your notes to do it, see what you can recall. So if you've got that theme or you know that particular area or the particular chapter you need to cover, use that as a heading and then say, okay, do a brain dump. What can I remember about this? And that will help you identify what you know and what you need to top up. So I'm going to show you a table, a different way of doing it, but you can include a definition. It might be defining a legal term. It might be defining a theory, but writing an explanation in your words that means something to you will help with recall. Also, examples. An example will help you remember how that applies. It's called association. So sometimes you might have trouble remembering the key aspect of a particular theoretical concept, or it could be a particular ruling. But if you gave yourself an example, that also helps you remember, and you might remember the example before you actually remember the ruling. Some subjects, depending on how the content is delivered, sometimes a lecturer or tutor will have some summary points at the end of the lecture. That can be another way of doing some prompt points. This doesn't want to move. Let's move this down the bottom, just so my people in Hope can see. Some people like doing a mind map or a visual thing, so they prefer actions rather than words. It's about what works for you. So here's an example of a table, fitting it to a page. This is also useful to structure for essays or written responses. So if you have the topic, definition, theory, or it could be the ruling or the particular aspect, you might want to make some key points from the lecture notes or try and recall them and give an example, because this would help you structure a paragraph. Because you're making a statement, you're giving an explanation of what it means or how it applies, and you're providing an example in context. The examples help you remember some of the other points, and the points help you remember the examples. So it's almost like, I don't want to say double dipping, but it's giving you a bit of a backup in how to recall stuff. But if you have this, something like this on a page, and okay, this is nice and neatly written, but when I was doing the hand ones, I'd do coloured pens or something like that. So it meant something to me. This is one way of approaching summary notes. And so having one of these for each topic or each week of the session makes it far easier to revise. How do I use a textbook? When you go to revision, do not try and read a textbook cover to cover. So that example I showed you from Buzz 121, where it had a number of chapters that would be part of the textbook. One of the worst things you can do is actually start reading the chapter from scratch. Find the topic, see what it covers, see what you can recall. Then top up information. So if you've got a text or a physical textbook, go to the index section at the back. Look up that particular topic because it might be mentioned in a couple of areas. That will point you directly to the information rather than reading an entire chapter. If you have an electronic text, or it might be a PDF that's provided to you as part of the course content or a prescribed reading, then you can use the find function. So I've just put the Control F for if it's Windows or Android, or Command F if it's Apple or iOS. And you can put in that term and it will take you to that particular area in the document. This way you just read what you need to know. It's in smaller chunks rather than big blocks of text. The other thing is, if you find that the explanation that you've got in a text or in a document is not working for you, or is still a bit confusing, you can go and ask your lecturer in any revision sessions. But the library is also a great source that you can say, have you got more information on this? Or read another text in the same area which may explain it in a different way. So how do I revise? Start now. We're starting to come up to the end of session. Start now. Because most subjects will either have a revision session or a revision week where they might have drop-in sessions. So by starting these revision notes now, you'll understand where the gaps are in your knowledge, and you have the chance to ask your lecturer or tutor to say, can you please explain this? This isn't very clear. I don't understand. What would be an example of this? Whereas if you're leaving it to the study week, it's putting a lot of pressure on yourself. So start now. You could say, okay, well, tonight I'm going to do two lots or something like that and sit and work through them. So this is where I'm saying identify where the gaps in the knowledge are so that you can fill in those gaps rather than trying to start from scratch. Do not try and memorise textbooks, chapters or essays. Because you're going to remember something in relation to a particular question, and unless a lecturer has given you the exact question that is going to be in the exam, you are going to memorise it and not answer the question. So avoid that. Do not try and make notes to hide if it's an online exam or something. We do have authorised materials, so you will be advised with your particular assessment task what you can and cannot use. And don't try and guess what the exam questions will be, particularly with essays or short answers, because that's when you start memorising stuff. And believe it or not, we mark a lot of papers and we can tell who's memorised stuff and who's actually answered the question. So about the exam or time final assessment task. You need to understand where it's on. So the exam period is shown in the subject outline. I've shown the exam period for autumn session 2022, which is the 2 weeks commencing from the 13th of June, 13th and 20th of June. The study recess is the week of the 6th of June. The exam timetable, it's never published in the subject outline, it's only the exam period, because at the start of session, we don't know exactly how many exams are required because we don't know exactly how many students are enrolled in particular subjects. So it's actually managed centrally, and the timetable comes out usually 3 to 4 weeks before the exam period. You need to watch SOLs and look at SOLs to see where your exam date is. Understand the structure of the exam or assessment task. Some of the information will be in the subject outline, which this one, this is from Timetable 1 from autumn this year, and it says the style and format is essay, multiple choice questions and or short answers. So it's actually got a mix in there. So it may be outlined in your subject outline, the style and format of your particular exam, whether it's 3 essays, 2 short essays, 2 long essays, whatever. And there may be additional information provided on your Moodle site. If you are not clear on what the terminology means or what is required, like how long is an essay, what is an essay, make sure you clarify that at the revision sessions or with your tutors. The other part is, and this might sound silly, but I've had this, a subject I used to teach had short and long essays, and people would write the same length, whether it was a short or long essay. A long essay has to be longer than a short essay. And an essay is an essay, it's not just a paragraph. So it does require an introduction, it does require body paragraphs, and it does require a conclusion. So make sure you do this. Also understand what's required. So is it going to require the application of formulas? Is it multiple choice questions? Like, is it, so we randomise them. Is it going to require calculations or diagrams? So be aware before the exam, what, if any, supporting material will be provided to you. So it could be a formula sheet, it might be a case that you have to do some pre-reading, it might be some particular notes that are provided to all students. What, if any, additional materials are permitted? So it could be an approved calculator, or it may be described as what's called an open book exam, which is you are allowed to have a textbook or case beside you while you answer particular questions. Find out if questions have to be answered in any particular order. Now that will depend on the style of exam that it is and whether or not Proctorio is going to be involved. There's not too many in the Faculty of Business and Law, and Belle's going to talk about that for us. But the reason why I ask is if the questions have to be answered in a particular order, usually with a multiple choice question, you would have to answer those questions in the order because of the way the program is sequenced, but you might be able to do the multiple choice portion first and then do an essay or a short answer separately. But again, this is all about asking the questions to understand. During the question, read each question carefully. Understand if examples are required. So it might say, discuss this particular aspect, provide examples. If it asks you for examples, give examples. Understand if theory or concepts need to be explained or related to the question, or if you have to identify any referencing material. And also understand the structure of the exam in terms of time. So the example I was showing before that has the multiple choice, essay and short answer questions, understand how long each bit is, because that will help you break up the time and understand how much time you need to devote to it. If you had short and long answer essays, you might devote, say, half an hour to a short essay, you might devote 45 minutes to a long essay, depending on the length of the exam. And this is where I go right to time. So use the time. The exams have been structured with a period of time for you to make the best effort in demonstrating what you know. So it's not about getting it done as quickly as possible and getting out of there, writing a bare minimum to think that you're going to pass. Use the time. It's there for a reason. So this is where understanding the type of questions, the structure of the exam and how much time is there and the value of the questions. Usually, for example, multiple choice questions have a shorter or a lower value. So you don't want to spend as much time on that. You might want to invest more time in the essay component. Don't take risks or gambles. Attempt the correct number of questions from each section. Section. So some exams will be structured where you have to answer 2 questions from part A or 2 questions from part B. Don't go, well, I don't like the questions in part B, I'm just going to answer all the questions in part A. Do what the instructions tell you to do. Don't try and guess and memorise essays. As I said, we can pick them. And don't think, oh, well, if I did the 2 long essays, they're worth more marks, I'll just concentrate on those and that should be enough to pass the exam. You don't want to take that sort of risk. Attempt all questions that are required, but make sure you spend the time where it's needed. Do not cheat. So one of my areas is academic integrity. So attempt the correct number of questions. The academic integrity policies and procedures apply to exams and timed assessment, and that's down to sharing materials, not doing colluding online, trying to take it in the same room and talking to people about your answers. This is your work. You want to get credit for your work. What if I'm sick on the day of the exam or timed assessment? You need to apply for academic consideration. So if you're sick on the morning of the exam, you can't start the exam and then go, oh, well, you know, it's either you're well enough to do the exam or you're not well enough to do the exam. Make a call. And if that's for approved applications, you'll be offered a deferred assessment. So Proctorio-based exams. So now I'm going to pass over to BAL.
Thanks, Anne. Are my slides in your pack or?
Yes, they are.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us this evening. I guess I'm not sure if anyone online is having a Proctorio exam, but we thought it might be for this session, thought it might be worthwhile that you may have heard of it, may not know what it is, and just running through, I guess, a couple of questions if you have any, and I guess showing you on the website. There's an excellent website with lots of frequently asked questions. I guess what is really interesting is that you guys have lived in a time where exams have been in many different formats, many different ways. You know, we've had a lot of disruption in the ways that you've learned at a university. And so one of the key areas for us as a university is to ensure that your degree is of quality and that the person sitting your exam is you, or the person that's meant to be sitting their exam, and that ensures the quality, not only of us as a university, but the quality of your subject and the course that you're in. So the integrity, of the examination process is really important. And as we kind of live in this very unknown era, I guess, what is becoming really important, and at the moment the university have been looking at ways to invigilate online exams for a couple of years now, and so they've been trialling a piece of software called Proctorio. And sorry, Anne, could you just go to that next slide?
Yep.
And next one. And I guess Proctorio is the software that UIW has chosen as our online invigilation tool that integrates with our, I guess, e-learning environment. So for us, that's Moodle. It integrates with our Moodle quiz environment and works within your browser via what we call a Proctorio extension. And at the moment, the university has just put this in for accredited subjects, so subjects that sit within an accredited degree. And I'll show you the subjects for the Faculty of Business and Law at the minute. Now, obviously, for this session, law is not engaging in, and our other accredited programs other than law, I guess within the School of Business, we have accredited programs within accounting and finance. And so for us, we're going to use Proctorio in a few of our subjects. So I guess it's really important. This extension, this Proctorio Extensions, allows elements of your activity when you're sitting the online exam to be recorded, but it definitely does not have access to your operating system. So as you enter the online environment, so you're obviously the link to your exam is in Moodle. As you enter that Moodle environment, you then, Proctorio extension sits on top, and basically there's a recording of your browser and what's happening during that exam. It basically stores the recording of your activity, and that recording is only accessed by authorised UOW invigilators, and they look at those recordings after and identify you via your student card, which you hold up just before the exam starts, and then that's kind of recorded. So they identify you, that you say that you're the person sitting the exam, and then just look at different activity that go on throughout the exam, and we can have a bit of a chat about that if it's worrying anyone. But definitely does not give live access to anyone to view your activity in real time while you're sitting the exam. Thanks, Anne. Next slide. So for us as a faculty, no law subjects will be using Proctorio during autumn. And in the School of Business, we have Econ 100, Fin 111, Fin 222, and Fin 252. So you'll notice a couple of those subjects are those subject outlines that Anne had in her previous slides. And you'll notice the wide of exam type questions that was in those descriptions. So within the Moodle quiz environment, you'll be asked multiple choice. You might be asked short answers, so you'll have a space to type your answer. You might be asked to draw something on a piece of paper. If that's the case, you draw it and then upload it, pretty much like you've done over the past couple of years. I guess there's been, a few questions. If I'm drawing, obviously my head's, my head's moving. It's really so that the coordinator, your subject coordinator has told the exam team and the invigilation team what is happening during your exam. So they know for Fin 252 that the students have a formula sheet. And so the students will be looking at that formula sheet during the exam, or the formula sheet is in the browser and they will have that open. So they'll be swapping between different pages in their browser. And so that as unusual activity. Yeah, sorry, next slide. So I guess I don't necessarily need to read through this, but I just wanted to put up some of the important information more about privacy of student data, which is really, really important. And I really encourage you to hop on to the online exam invigilation website at UOW if you've got any questions at all. Any students in those 4 subjects that we're running Proctorio, they've known for quite some time and have engaged in the Proctorio example type test, how to go with downloading Proctorio. Yeah, so I really urge you just to read through those. Thanks, Anne. Next slide. These are a couple of ones in terms of what if I. So what if I know I've got a Proctorio exam and I don't have adequate equipment? So I might be sitting at home and I don't necessarily have a camera on my laptop, or my laptop might be really old, as all our laptops have struggled over the past couple of years. So it's really important to know that UOW are there to support you and help you through this process. So if you contact the exams team, they can help you, and there's many labs booked and rooms booked during the exam period for people that need to sit a Proctorio exam or sit an exam, an online exam, and don't have the proper equipment. So you can sit on UOW site to do that. Again, if you have an RA or a reasonable adjustment in place, please talk to your RA officer. Individuals, students' needs to be taken into account and made aware of. It's really important that, you know, exams are stressful enough. We're really trying to make this as stress-free as possible. I require a formulation sheet during my exam, and as I just mentioned, you know, your subject coordinator has told the invigilation team that, and so you know when that particular exam is running. This is kind of the key strokes that will be happening, and nothing unusual would be happening. They know that you know, students, there'll be periods of non-typing because they would be looking at their formulation sheet, or they may be writing. So they're the kind of activities that they're after. Thanks, Anne. Next slide. So any student can go in and have a go at the practice exam. So if you're really interested in what's all this discussion about Proctorio, what if I have a student in the future that's using Proctorio, you hop onto your Moodle dashboard, you'll see you'll have your Career Smart, your Start Smart, or your consent information. That end one there, that technical practice exam site, you can click on that, and all that happens is it basically will download the Proctorio extension. It'll say to you, hold your student ID card up so I can check you say who you are. It just takes you through a couple of multiple choice questions, and then you close, and then the extension is removed. So and yeah, if you're interested in having a go at that, please feel free. It's there, and if you're interested, if you're not sitting one of those exams. Next slide, please. And I would just have questions. If you have any today, I will endeavour to answer them, or look answers up on the frequently asked questions. But as each question goes from the student, the exam team is updating that question list every day. So yeah, that's all from me. Thanks, Anne.
Thanks, Belle. The bit I'm going to cover now is about exam results, what happens there. Exams and final timed assessment and final assessments, for that matter, their results for those are not released separately. So whereas you've got, say, assessment 1, assessment 2 or assessment 3, and you get those results coming up, final assessments tasks only come through at the release of results. And they're on the UOW Key Dates Day, which is, I think, I'll pull it up at the end of this, which is the 7th of July. It says the 7th of July, it comes out actually at 5 p.m. the night before. Someone walks out and hits the release button. So from 5 p.m. the day before the results, you will be able to find them online. So while there isn't a separate grade shown for your final assessment, you can actually work it out because your overall grade's 100. You know what you got for the other assessment tasks. So the bit that's left over is what you got for your final assessment. So where a final assessment is deferred, and you'll see a WD grade for academic consideration. There's a code called WH for potential misconduct or an outstanding task. A supplementary attempt, so you mightn't have passed the final assessment, but in some cases there are some rules where you can have a second attempt, or a technical fail, which is not passing the final assessment task. So a final assessment task is what we sort of call, for want of a better term, a hurdle assessment, that you have to meet a passing grade in that final task. And if you don't do it, you get a thing called a technical fail. You can seek feedback from your subject coordinator or tutor, as advised by your subject, about your final assessment task. So I don't understand why I got this mark. You can actually make an appointment and talk through it. So you don't get formal feedback like you do for normal assessment tasks, and that's part of the exam rules, but you can seek feedback. So just general keeping connected to the faculty, and we're happy to take questions. I don't know if there's any questions in the chat, but I did get one in the room, which I'll go into a bit more detail. So I'm just going to flip out of PowerPoint so I can actually go on to the UOW website, which says I'm going to do that, and here's key dates. So what you see here is, just like on the subject outline, it's got the details of the study recess, the 2-week.
Can you just share your screen, Anne?
Sorry, thanks,
That's
Belle.
fine. Thanks.
Share, where are we? Here we go. Okay, so now you can see on the UOW key dates, the study recess in June for a week, the 2-week exam period, and then the mid-year recess, but you'll see the release of results. So between the exam period and the 7th of July or the 6th of July, which is when they technically get released, a lot happens. And so what happens is your papers will be marked, or your attempts at exam will be marked, and it goes through actually some moderation committees. So school assessment committees that take place, and a faculty assessment committee takes place. If someone fails only one subject and they're just about to graduate, we give them an additional attempt to pass the subject. So there are a number of processes that actually occur, and that's why there is a bit of a gap between the end of the exam period and the release of results. Now, there is another thing on the dates, which is, well, sorry, now I've just got to get this. Don't want my float. I want UOW exam key dates, and I'll explain about deferreds. So there is another list of dates, which is here, and this is the autumn, spring and annual dates for 2022. So you can see, just like we had on the other site, we've got the final exam period. So it's actually got the date the final exam timetable is released, which is the 6th of May. So you should be going on to your SOLs from the 6th of May. It will send you a message, but I know some people don't read all their SOLs messages, but you might go on to the site. That's the date you really need to go on and see when your exams are scheduled. We've got that exam period. It was noticed in the subject outline, and the release of results. You can see this SUP, short for supplementary, and deferred timetable release is on the 13th of July, because by that time we know how many students need a deferred exam. And the deferred and supplementary exam period is this 18 to 22 July. So if you were sick on the day of the exam, you've applied for academic consideration, that gets noted. The release of results will give you a WD for a deferred, and then you will be advised of the exam timetable for that deferred assessment. Now, if your deferred assessment is not an exam or a timed assessment, they may get in touch with you if it's a report or some other piece of writing that needs to be submitted. it may fall outside that period. It might be earlier. But for formal exams or timed assessment tasks, this is how the process works. The result release after that is just based on marking, moderation and change of grades. So usually it would be a week to 10 days before you'd see the results after that deferred or supplementary exam period. So I hope that explains what deferred assessments are in terms of academic consideration. So the dates are there and the similar process operates for spring and summer. So that is answering one specific question that we had. There are separate dates for trimesters, which are the postgraduate students in business and law, and the Graduate School of Medicine has its own timetable. Yeah, that's how that works. So great. Do we have any other questions that people would like to ask? Don't know if there's anything in the chat. Nothing coming through online. Okay. Do you got any other question? Yeah. Okay, I've got another question coming down from here. Yeah. Sorry, student ID cards?
Yeah, so do you need them?
Okay, do you need student ID cards is the answer. So for a Proctorio exam, yes, because the identity is check going onto it. But if it's another one, no. So your username and password is how you get into the Moodle site. That would be where the exam is released. Too easy. Too easy. So yeah, it's important to have it for the Proctorio ones because it's validating identity. It's one of the reasons why we have proctored exams, so that we can validate who is taking the exam. And just a reminder to people, you should not be giving anybody else your username and ID. So that's one way of validating. We don't have dual factor or authentication, double factor authentication at the present time, but Proctorio is the way that they're doing validation checks. So we're aware that we still have a few students studying with us who are offshore, haven't returned to Australia, and some of those started studying with UOW before or while the borders were closed, and they can use a passport or driver's licence to validate their ID if they don't have their UOW ID. It's something that has your picture and we can just validate you are who you say you are. So, and then Belle's just answered a question in the chat, will Proctorio be used for FIN 223 and not for, that will not be for autumn 2022. Okay, another question. What happens if there is a problem during a timed exam, like if the internet stops working or if a computer crashes? There is technical support provided for every exam, so that we recognise that you cannot help when, you know, there's power outage, a car crashes into a power pole, you suddenly lose internet. Things happen, technical equipment happens, it breaks down, it does bits that we don't quite plan for, and usually at the worst possible time. But there will be a contact provided for you during a Proctorio exam and you can get in touch with that technical support. They may be able to help you adjust or do something else. And they can also make arrangements if you've lost, they can identify that you've lost a portion of time for your exam. They can extend it at the end to compensate for that. If someone was very worried about their internet capability, you can arrange to take an exam on campus. So to use university equipment, using the university network. So there are also contingencies, and that's one of the reasons it's really important to do that test, that trial test, to see if your technology can take it. And if it can't, then it might be getting in touch with the exams team to see if you can take the exam at one of our campuses.
I think, Joanne, sorry, can I just add, if it's not a Proctorio, but you still have an online examination and yes, then you would just call that, 4221 3000 and just explain what's going on. They may be able to help you. And then obviously, you would email your subject coordinator. Usually with a crash, when you log back on, your timing just starts from when you start. So it's not like you've lost time. It'll just still continue within that Moodle environment. But if you, I don't know, if something happens and you've lost it for like 5 hours or you just can't get it back, then I would just then just email your subject coordinator.
Yeah, and that would then you'd be allocated a deferred exam. So question being asked, can we have final exams at the campus in spring based on paper? At the moment, the answer is no. And partially, or primarily, it's still around COVID related reasons, because scheduling them and then there could be a COVID outbreak has all sorts of implications. I know some people have said, but we did graduations on campus with lots of people in the same room and it was all okay. The university is playing safe at the moment because the implications of lots of students getting sick, taking an exam and not being able to take the next exam. But it's still a work in progress. Like it's been all the way through COVID. We take each week, month as it comes and we adjust things. But we are talking around assessment tasks. There may be some examinations that happen on campus, but at the moment they're primarily practical ones, not really affecting the Faculty of Business and Law, but more around science, medicine and health and engineering, where they've actually got to operate equipment or make sure that like a nurse can give an injection. It's not something you can really test online. So the practical exams will have priority of spaces on campus, but it's a work in progress. So will it happen in spring? Can't answer the question at the moment, but the style of exams that we've had in the past where the sports hall was converted into a huge examination centre, we're not likely to see that definitely this year because, or even in the future, just depending on what happens with COVID. And yeah, we'll see how we go with assessment tasks and alternate assessments. So, yeah. Is there a place on campus that we can do online exams if we don't have a quiet place? Definitely. And that's when you get in touch with the exams unit. I think it comes out when they release the exam times. You get in touch with the exams unit and you can actually book a place to take the exam on campus. So they recognise that. For another question, it's more difficult to type numbers than to use a pen and paper. Definitely. And that's why you'll find that with some of the numbers-based or formula-based exams that you can write on paper and take a photograph and upload it. So we're not asking you to put formulas into a computer to respond to a question. So that is definitely recognised. And I think for one of the Fin exams, students will have a choice of either typing in their answers for the written bit or handwrite it, photograph it and upload it. So we are trying to provide alternatives like that. And the thing around numbers and formulas is something not only unique to business and law, it's the same with science, medicine and health. Trying to do chemical compound drawings is not easy, and nor is the School of Maths and Stats another piece to or have similar issues. So we're all trying to come up with some solutions that way. And all extra time to make it happen, yes. And it is factored in any uploads. If you have to take a photo and upload, that is not part of the exam time itself. That is sort of maintenance operational time after the exam. So don't think you have to budget for panicking to take a photo and get it up within the exam window. There is a period after the exam that you can do it. I'm not saying hours or days, but there is a window of time which is reasonable for you to upload your answers. So, yeah, so we are doing a wash-up a review after this particular session to see how some of these things are operating, and we'll be refining processes. So everything is not set in stone. We're a learning institution and we learn through doing and applying and revising and reflecting. So the principles that we teach, we're also applying to what we do as well. So we're very much open to feedback. So if anyone is experiencing a Proctorio exam, we would welcome your feedback as to what you thought worked, what didn't work, because that will all factor into what we're doing. Great. So are there any more questions? Well, what I'd probably like to say is that, first of all, thank you for attending the live version. For those who are watching this afterwards, I hope you find it helpful. You might go away from this and have a question that you didn't think of, because that always happens. I really wish I'd asked question X, Y, or Z. Belinda and I are happy to take questions, so you can drop us an email. Belinda's is bgibbons@uow.edu.au, and I'm just ANNR@uow.edu.au. You can drop us an email and then we'll follow through and get your questions answered. But yeah, and I hope theatre is a favourite place. I'm very happy to say I'm not here by myself. I have had some people turn up, which is really lovely. Unfortunately, the first couple of sessions we ran here got impacted by the floods, the water, and water came through Hope Theatre, so we had to move online. So it's nice to actually have one in person. So hopefully we can have more and more people come to campus. So thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate it, and good luck with preparing for your exams and for the exams itself. So see you later, everyone. Great. Bye.